throw yourself out into the great wide open, when you go out there with absolute uncertainty as to what's going to take place or where you're going to go next, and then you improvise and figure things out on the fly, it makes, when you come back to what is a more sane and more nerfed up reality that is America and the West, it really puts things into perspective. And when people are fearing such things as the coronavirus with a 99 point something percent survival rate for people that are healthy to begin with. So given that context, this is why I want to relate the story to you of the time that I crossed the Russian-Mongolia border on foot. There was a lot of uncertainty. There was a lot of improvisation. There were implied threats. There was the moment that I was certain that they were going to try to kidnap me and I'd have to try to run away in the middle of the night. So if you enjoyed the story, the one thing that I ask is that you share the video with a friend and that you thumb it up on YouTube. It's very difficult to overcome the YouTube algorithm, but I want to share this with you, not only because it's a fun story, but it puts things into perspective as to what we fear in everyday life in the nerfed up West, in America and in Europe. So let's begin. I was in Siberia on Lake Baikal, which is the largest body of fresh water in the world. It's thousands of feet deep at certain points. They actually have seals there that are natural to the area. I went on a long trek, not nearly around the lake. The lake is huge. It's like Lake Superior. Good luck getting around it. But exiting from there, I decided that I wanted to leave Russia. Russia is not my favorite place. So I boarded the Trans-Siberian and I took it to Ulan-Ude. On the way there, I met a beautiful Russian girl. And if I was more versed in Russian, I certainly would have tried to join her at her local village and would have made that dilly-dally. But it's very hard for me to communicate because my Russian is this much. And in that region of the world, their English isn't any better. And electing to save money and the 12 hours the Trans-Siberian Highway takes to cross the Russian border to Mongolia, I step out off the rail line in Ulan-Ude, intending to purchase a bus ticket to Ulaanbaatar, the capital of Mongolia. So I step off the train, and immediately taxi drivers, recognizing the foreigners, all clamor around me, hoping to get a little bit more than they would charge the average Russian. My fare, it went to a very smiley, friendly, Asian man with a pudgy, well-worn face. He took me to the bus station where I intended to purchase my ticket. A small window in the door acts as the link between the sales office and the lengthy line there to purchase tickets. My taxi driver, knowing he still has to take me to find lodgings, because I remember the bus was supposed to leave the next day, weaves his way to the front and shouts a question at the scowling, chubby clerk, who angrily responds that no tickets are available for tomorrow. No tickets? When then? So there was a German girl and her boyfriend with a similar plan, and they overhear the commotion, and they speak some Russian, and she, acting as a translator, it turns out that there is no bus to Mongolia for not 1, not 2, but 3 days. So much for saving those 12 hours of crossing the Mongolian border. So look, we're all in the same boat. And so she, using her local SIM card, decides to check the availability if we all hopped back on the Trans-Siberian Express and wait out the 12 hours at the border. Trans-Siberian Express ain't that, because the next one doesn't leave for Mongolia for also 3 days. My plan for saving time had apparently come to naught. So my taxi offers to drive us to the border for the equivalent of $140. It's 4 hours there, plus back for him, and many miles over really mediocre roads. So his price is by no means totally out of the line. But it's a non-starter for my new amigos, the German girl and her boyfriend. I'm anxious to leave Russia. I consider walking. Now, I discover that it turns out that there are share vans that will take you as far as the Russian border town, and the last one leaves in 45 minutes. Gotta leave Russia. Don't want to be here no more. So warily, I throw my luggage in the back of the van and I board. So for 4 hours, we drive over mostly, but not always, paved roads. Very, very dusty. The van's windows turn so dirty, I wonder how the driver can continue. I close my eyes so I don't get a headache from trying to make sense of the smudged images hurtling towards me at 100 kilometers an hour. Darkness falls as we near our destination, and I still have no idea where I'm going to be spending the night or what journey lies in front of me. And then, as we get closer, we happen upon a military checkpoint. A soldier from the checkpoint steps into the van. He only cursorily glances at everybody else. Everybody else is a combination of Asian and maybe a little European. I'm the only one there who clearly looks out of place, as I'm Caucasian 100%. Actually, I do have East Asian blood in me, but it barely shows through. He approaches me, and he asks me in Russian for my passport. He takes it outside, giving me great shortness of breath. Time passes. Everybody is waiting because of me. I'm not sure how, but I'm certain they hope that it's going to be resolved soon, one way or another. Eventually, the van's door slides open, and he hands me back my oxygen, then curtly explains that I need to leave Russia immediately. I'm being kicked out of Russia. I probably deserve it, but how could he know? Seriously, is it because I'm American? I asked out loud. Needless to say, no one around me can explain it, mainly because they can't understand a word that's escaping my lips. A half hour later, we arrive at the border town. I get out of the van. I collect my bags. I stand there and I look around in the dark, wondering where I'm going to go next. And I start to shiver, partly because it was very chilly in the night air, and partly due to the fact that I was completely unsure where to go. There was nothing there. There was just a dusty area with a few buildings. Then an older man from the van kindly approaches me and offers me, in Russian, the following advice. Leave Russia now. I know better than to mess with Russian authorities. After all, it's their easygoing, chillaxed attitude which makes me so anxious to escape to begin with. By now, the time is around midnight, and I'm still several kilometers away from the border with all my bags. Many people in this region, they augment their meager incomes by acting as impromptu taxis, and one soon stops for my fare. A few miles away, my driver unceremoniously dumps me in front of a barbed wire rolling gate and the rest of the border protected by concrete walls extending as far as the eye can see. I step out of the van and I'm like, now what? He shrugs his shoulders, gets back in the car, chuckles for a moment, and drives away, leaving a cloud of dust as a parting gift for me to inhale. The border is closed and it's after midnight, and the only good news is that 5 cars are waiting to cross. The driver at the front of the line seizes on the opportunity presented, and good for him. He rolls down his window and offers to take me across the border and then to the nearest town on the Mongolian side for 200 rubles. Lacking any options, I climb inside of their very well-worn car.
Somehow I ended up at the checkpoint here for the Russian-Mongolian border, and you can see this way there's not a very long line of cars, but the front car immediately offered to pick me up and give me a ride. And of course they're charging me, but whatever.
About a half hour later, the gate opens and our car rolls forward. I go into the passport processing office rather than wait in the automobile as I was instructed. A very young, kind of attractive female clerk speaks a few words of English to me. She's surprised by the circumstances by which I'm crossing her border. We don't see many Americans here, she explains. And when tourists cross, they're doing so by an actual sanctioned bus. No one just walks up to the border. Eventually, she processes my passport. I did not want to leave it. That thing is my baby, my oxygen. Without that, I ain't going anywhere and I ain't surviving. She smiles. She hands it back to me. Now, the rest of the Russian border ambassadors aren't nearly as kind. They give me the third degree at the next 2 checkpoints. Suspiciously, they look over every single page of my passport, my visa, my entry card, gazing me up and down, taking a DNA sample, performing a colonoscopy. Finally, they hand me back my passport, stamp it, and I allow myself my first deep breath, pretty much since the military checkpoint. Now, on the other side of the Mongolian border, there is no border town. There are no lights, not even a moon. And my car, we peel out into the vast expanse of darkness. And so half a mile away from the border, maybe a mile, we peel off the main road. Kaboom, kaboom. We start running over rocks. We go sideways, up and down, as there are small little ditches. I'm a little bit frightened. And there is a man up ahead, a huge silhouette of a man standing next to a black SUV. And when I ask, what are we doing? My driver immediately starts yelling, switch, switch. So now I start tensing up. I started asking myself, how much is an American worth here? Am I being robbed? Am I being kidnapped? ISIS hasn't burrowed over to this side of the world, has it? Outside of a mile back to the border, there's nowhere for me to run, but my nostrils, they start dilating in anticipation. And the SUV's window rolls down, and a chubby Mongolian steps into the beams of our headlights. Turns out that switch actually meant money exchange. And $1 US translates to 1,850 Mongolian tugriks. And with the biggest denomination being 20,000, being a one-man exchange means carrying a stack of bills the size of a small piano, like this. So I exchange some of my rubles. We get back onto the road and drive to the border town. Border being 20 miles away. And when I say there is absolutely zero in between, I'd have to tell you that is a very generous statement. They drop me by a hotel next to the bus stop, which is pretty much the center of action for this population, and charge me. My driver, he charged me triple the original rate, so it was 600 rubles. I'm way too tired to put up the fight, and for these poor people, the $18, which that translated to at the time, is a fantastic score, a generous day's wages. Now it's 2:30 a.m. as I rent the room for what at best will be 5 hours. I brush my teeth, I hit the sheets, and I'm out like a light. And the next morning, the hotel owner, the hotel clerk, woke me up just maybe after 3 hours so I could take the first bus to Ulaanbaatar. And that is how I was able to cross the Russian-Mongolian border with a little improvisation, a little bit of luck, and I wasn't kidnapped as I thought I was going to be. So I hope that when you realize that the world is so full of uncertainty and that each action we take leads to itself to a new destination, a new fate, that we can try to put the idea of coronavirus and the fear that the media is espousing and all the deaths that they claim are going to take place into perspective. Because at any moment, we might die. At any moment, something negative might happen to us. That doesn't mean that we put ourselves in front of the oncoming train. We can avoid the train tracks, but we can't avoid walking or going to our next destination. And there's no reason to stop living life with some educated guesses and taking some form of precaution. So if you ever want to join me in crossing the Russian-Mongolian border, as I did, I'll be game. Message me if you think that you want to. I take it that my inbox will be very vacant. Peace and blessings to everybody out there. If you like this story, share it with a friend, thumb it up, subscribe to the channel, hit the notification bell, all notifications, and have a blessed day. And do not allow fear to govern your life. Peace out.